Okay, we're here for the final episode of the OTT Red Spotlight Series, sponsored kindly by Bedrock, with the CEO of Bedrock, Jonas Engwall. Jonas, it's great to meet you.
Yeah, pleased to be here. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. How's the show been for you so far?
Good. I think it's been busy. Lots of activity. People seem to like our booth, so it's all good.
Yeah, I think the reaction's been great.
Yeah, and I love to have you guys here, so it's awesome. A bit of activity.
It's been fun to be here. Intellectually, trying to stay ahead of the subject matter experts that we've had at this table has been challenging for me, but I just made sure that I got early nights ready for the next day.
I think that's a good...
that's the trick, huh?
That's the trick. Yeah.
Jonas, I'd love to start with the opportunity for people who are listening and watching to just get the opportunity to know a little bit more about you. I mean, clearly you're the CEO of Bedrock. Everyone knows that, a lot of the kind of peer group that you've got within the industry, but who's the guy behind the job title?
Who's the guy behind the job title? Basic stuff. I'll tell you basic stuff. I'm Swedish. I've been in this industry. I've been in tech industry starting around 99, I think it was. Yeah. And then I pivoted into media. And now it's a perfect mix because now it's all migrating into the middle. It's a mishmash.
So much convergence.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been doing this for quite some time. I've actually been outside of Sweden for more than 20 years, I think. I lived in 10 different countries, lived and or worked in 10 different countries, including Asia, and now I'm back to Europe for the last 4 years and doing Bedrock, basically.
Right. Where was your favorite place to live?
I've been very lucky because pretty much, with one exception, I pretty much prefer the place I'm living in now, so to speak, or the current. Okay. So I loved Singapore when I lived in Singapore. Yeah. Now I'm back to Europe. I really love being back here. I mean, I could go to Singapore again, but I'm super happy to be back. So I don't know, difficult to say, but
you're in a happy place.
I'm in a happy place. I lived in London, was awesome.
Yeah, great city.
When I was younger, and it's all about where you are in life, etc.
Whereabouts in Sweden are you from?
Stockholm.
Okay. Yeah. I spent 3 years in Gothenburg, so.
Oh wow, there you go.
Yeah, I know the train across town.
Okay.
Stockholm's a fantastic city as well. Love
Gothenburg
Stockholm.
is nice. Lots of nice people actually.
Yeah.
The one that kills me in Sweden is the weather and the lack of sun.
Yeah, but in the summer you get the opposite
you get
effect.
too much instead. Yeah. I mean, all night long.
The midnight summer really messed with my head the first time I went to it. But I got to know the avenue really well in Gothenburg.
And you've done some midsummer parties then?
Yeah, I've done some cool stuff and out on the islands, going to the.
It's pretty cool actually.
Really cool,
the singing and the drinking is a Swedish tradition.
I wish I could say I remembered it, but that's probably a good sign that I don't. It was a good night.
You had a good time.
Let's talk a little bit about the business.
Yeah,
Jonas.
Sure.
So, what's your current view of the market? It's been an interesting year from a macroeconomic perspective.
Yeah.
How's it been for you, and what do you foresee for the rest of the calendar year?
So obviously, the market is pretty tough for most people. For us particularly, I think that people are being forced to think about the basics and the reality, and I think not so long ago, 2 years ago, money was for free, especially if you said that you're going to spend it on streaming, go do wherever you want, no one is going to ask questions. I think nowadays, and when we formed Bedrock in 2019, it's formed on top of a company that's been around for a long time, 15 years. Yeah. But when we formed Bedrock, we were foreseeing a little bit and saying everyone is not going to be able to spend the amount of money that you need to spend on streaming to be, on the right level. Yeah. And I think that's becoming more reality now with the economical downturn. So it's a tough environment, but it's forcing people to ask some, awkward questions, but it's needed to get the business to where it needs to be, basically. Yeah. So it's tough, but I think it's really good for us because it's driving people to think about topics that we can help them with.
Yeah. You've got a really interesting philosophy, Jonas, when it comes to what constitutes the competitive horizon, the philosophy you've got on the spirit of the way you engender a community with your customers. Yeah. Unpack that a little bit for us. Let's start with, what constitutes a competitive horizon for you, because it's a bit unconventional.
Yeah. We look at things slightly differently, and I guess that's partly because where we come from. We are not a tech vendor. We emphasize that a lot. the way we work with our let's say customers, if you will, partners, we almost look at it as a exclusive streaming club. We only work with certain types of, basically, typically leading market leaders in the respective countries, really strong media companies, broadcasters, content owners, who are really serious about streaming, who want to pivot and continue to play a really important role in the streaming future. That's where we have a very good fit. So we have those guys around the table. Obviously there's a platform, there's tech, but there's a lot more. We bring that community. People can learn from each other, then via us or between each other. Obviously streaming is new, it's difficult, people are trying things out, and we have a really interesting mix, and they, some come from 10 years of SVOD, and another stakeholder is moving into SVOD, and they have tons to learn.
Yeah.
So it's a really, and these guys, they don't compete. They could theoretically, but they don't. And so it's a really it's a different way of looking at things, basically.
It is. I think it's very different. It's kind of arresting intellectually. I can imagine when you speak to potential clients about coming into that community.
Yeah.
It kind of takes them off balance in a good way.
Yeah, I think there's I think it gives comfort, the fact that we are part of a broadcast media company, the largest in Europe, by the way. We've been in that space world. We really understand their challenges, and frankly, we exist to help those, our own shareholders and others, to pivot and make a really important journey. We're not a charity, we do charge money, but ultimately we're trying to help them to pivot in the smartest possible way.
Yeah.
We're not here to kind of maximize and generate lots of fees and make streaming really expensive for them. The other way around, actually.
Yeah.
We want to try to do this in a very foreseeable. They have a clear view on their costs for the next 5 years. It's not inexpensive, but I would say it's a very, very. They get a lot of value for the money.
Yeah.
It's just a slightly different approach than others.
Yeah.
We want to avoid this. The typical vendor approach is, okay, give me your requirements. You hand over the requirements. You tell them what it costs.
Yeah.
The problem with that is when you give the requirements, they're already outdated.
Well, it strikes me as a bit differentiated as well, Jonas, because instead of selling on functionality, it's selling on this community spirit and the fact that you're part of something that's growing organically in value all of the time.
Exactly. So basically what we promise, and we look at a little bit of the basics, right? We look at, yes, you operate in a country in Europe. Yes, you used to be in a market with 2, 3, 4 other players that you kind of saw as your competition. Today you have global streaming platforms. All your users will have a Netflix, Spotify, whatever account.
Yeah.
There's effectively a global streaming standard that you are expecting to fulfill. What we promise is we will follow this standard. We basically promise to be on par with global giants, or better whenever we can. That's the foundation of the promise. Exactly what that means in 2 years' time, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
But and our stakeholders, they know that that's our philosophy. We will debate with them how they see the market going. Is this feature more important than that feature? So it's a really close relationship. Hence this kind of membership kind of idea.
I love the intimacy and the proximity of it, but it's kind of always moving forwards as well. It's blossoming.
And what I was saying also, they have a clear view on their costs, right? We charge the same amount of fees. Yes, there is obviously fees related to volume. So if you stream double, you will have more CDN, of course. But basically, the basic fees are the same. The platform grows. The ones who have been with us for a few years, they're paying the same today as 3 years ago. The platform is probably 3 times better today. Yeah. More devices, more features, more everything.
Yeah.
But fees stay the same. So
You buy in. It's like a property. It reminds me of a property. You know, what you invest in, it grows in value.
Exactly.
But your investment remains the same.
Exactly.
The equity grows.
Exactly.
I love that. So that's a very innovative approach. What's your view from a wider horizon perspective on innovation in the OTT arena? And I'll tell you what my motivation is for asking you this, Jonas. You're kind of ahead of the curve when it comes to the lens that you look through on innovation. But a lot of the market's kind of static, beginning to just compete on price. You know, what do you think the next big thing is going to be? Because with your subject matter experts that I've been speaking to over the last 3 days, you got people like Tung who really know ad technology and all that stuff really well. You know, what's going to burst first in terms of the disruption that will be the catalyst for the next wave of innovation?
Really good question, to be honest. It's the one that keeps us up at night.
Yeah.
I mean, I can say I think that since everyone is focusing on profitability, I think that monetization and everything around monetization is going to be really important going forward. Yes, you need to have features and devices, etc., but we're focusing a lot, and I see this already, and you see it with Netflix, etc. All our clients, independently where they come from, if you have a SVOD background, they would have added an AVOD tier, and vice versa. You come from an AVOD background, you would have added an SVOD tier. And I think this is where you're going to see a lot of innovation. There's going to be a lot of experimentation. There's going to be ways to create additional ad inventory without being super annoying to the client and to the user. I think this is where people are going to play around a lot. I see, for example, things that we have toolkits to prepare. So if our clients want to build e-commerce, you can see people starting to play around with this. Not a full-blown e-commerce, service, but connected to content. You can easily see that e-commerce could be part of it. Yeah. So I think all of these things, just to optimize monetization, I think that's going to be a lot of focus coming years.
Tell me if you think I'm off piste here, Jonas, but I think there's a unique opportunity almost for Bedrock in that this question that keeps not only you and your leadership team up at night is bound to be keeping streaming companies around the world up at night.
Of course.
But with that community that you mentioned, that's the opportunity to incubate all of the different thoughts and ideas from the people that need that innovation.
Exactly, and that's precisely how we work. We will work together. We will define topics. Okay, so where do we want to, let's say, in what direction are we going to try to innovate? And we will then, we will talk to our stakeholders. We will invite experts from their organizations with ours, and we'll do think tanks. We will debate. We will, depending on the topic, it will sometimes it's a little bit easier to innovate. Sometimes it's really complex, but we spend a lot of time working. And sometimes everyone wants to be part of it. That's fine. Sometimes you have a clear, kind of natural leader within the group, and they will be part with us. And it depends on the topic, but it's a really interesting way to get your, brain waves flowing, right, and finding these interesting solutions, because we're doing it in this group spirit.
It feels to me, Jonas, like you very naturally take to this highly collaborative way of being, just beyond your own borders in terms of your colleague footprint, but within your client base as well. If we look within the business for a second, how's the business doing in terms of where you want it to be, culture, technology, performance?
So, it's a moving target, right? So you're always trying to become better. I think we've done an enormous journey. We started with a company that had an enormous amount of AVOD experience, and we actually ramped up on our SVOD experience. And so we were playing a bit of a catch-up for a while. And now it's really interesting, because now when we sit with our clients, of course there's always going to be another feature, there's always going to be another thing. But now it's interesting, now we're really into nitty-gritty. Can we make this thing, instead of taking half a second, can it take which is nice, because then that you're at a pretty good level when you're having those debates with your clients, right? And so I see that this device, can can we optimize this little thing
Yeah.
here? You know, that's an awesome place to be.
It is. You're looking for the 1%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, we always try to improve. We always try, and we're constantly trying to challenge ourselves. I mean, it's the one thing I really push. I said, you know, don't ever become complacent. It's great, we moved from here to this place. Now let's challenge this. Let's see what we can change. Let's see what we can improve. Let's reorganize ourselves. Let's try something else. You know, constantly push people.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, someone else is gonna do it for us, right?
100%.
So that's,
Jonas, I'm going to wrap up with a more personal question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
But if you could give some advice to the younger you, what would it be?
That's a really good question. I think it would be, I think that probably the best advice I give to myself, younger, or anybody else, keep the grit going. As in, what's gonna make you succeed is perseverance. You know, you can be really smart, you can be very strategic, but ultimately, perseverance and grit is what's gonna set you apart from anybody else. Just keep at it. Don't give up. Just keep, whatever direction you see in front of you. Just keep going. That's probably the one thing I would say.
Brilliant. Jonas Engwall, it's been a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for being a guest
Thanks for
on the
having me.
OTT Red Spotlight podcast and letting me host these podcasts from your fantastic stand at IBC 2023.
Pleasure. Thanks a lot.